and welcome back to Elle the Law Student. The lighting's really weird because yet again I've been really stupid and decided to film at night, which wasn't the best idea. So today I'm going to chat to you about a very important topic and something that has really been quite a life-changing experience for me. There's a few reasons why I'm making this video. One is because just in general, from a societal point of view, I think it's really important that people hear these stories, and just from the other point of view, like, this has been a super busy term. I've not been uploading at all, basically. Like, I uploaded a little bit but not much, and this is one of the reasons that things have been super busy. Today I will be talking about the pro bono work that I have been doing, and just before we start with the video, there are a few things that I just need to say. Some of the clients that I work with have dealt with some really traumatic experiences, for example sexual assault, abuse, domestic violence, just a lot of difficult situations, and so if any of those are going to be triggering or difficult for you to hear of, then please just turn off this video. Obviously I won't be going into detail on anything, but if just the mention of those things is very difficult for you, then please do just turn off this video, because I wouldn't want nobody to be deeply upset by what I'm saying here. Number two, I will obviously not be giving any details of the clients that I worked with. If I use any examples, then they will be just like recurring themes that I've seen with a lot of clients. In no way will I be disclosing any information about individuals that I've worked with through the course of my pro bono work. And finally, these views are just my own personal views. They do not represent the views of Oxford Legal Assistants or the university or the law firm that I work with at all. It's just basically my experiences, because I think it's a really important topic. The pro bono work is work that lawyers and law students do on a voluntary basis. So for example, at some like big city law firms, you'll do your regular cases and then you'll have like, I don't know, 10 hours a year that you can take off to do pro bono work. So that's like one side of it, people who are like paid qualified lawyers doing pro bono work. The other side of it is student work, and students tend to do like legal aid clinics and get involved at a firm to help out, and I will like come a bit onto that later as to why that's important. So I got involved in this through a programme called Oxford Legal Assistants, which is in partnership with the university. We submitted an application, we went for an interview, there were lots of us that applied and it was quite competitive and selective, so I feel incredibly grateful that I've had this opportunity to work with these people. So why did I decide to do pro bono work? There are a few reasons for this. I think the biggest thing, and this is probably something that I'll come on to later, is that I really just wanted to help people. There's a whole different load of reasons why people come into the legal field and the legal profession, and they're all completely, totally valid. But for me, I wanted to help people, particularly in vulnerable situations, who felt very isolated by the law, who felt like the law was a force to be used against them, who couldn't navigate the law on their own, and those were the people that I wanted to help. And when I found out about Oxford Legal Assistants when I was in my first year, so it's only open to second years, I applied in my final term of last year, because this sounded exactly like something that I could do to like help with that. Something else from a political point of view, and politics is something that I don't tend to talk about on this channel, have been really incredibly saddened over the past few years by the impact that so many events, including Brexit, including, you know, actually the recent coronavirus. I've been so saddened by the impact that it's had on the British population's response to immigrants, whether they are documented or undocumented, and I just thought I need to, if I have this opportunity to do something, I need to do this. Finally, access to justice is something that I'm very passionate about. I don't think that the law can truly be like a force for good, or a force for equality, and people cannot be equal under the law, which is a fundamental principle of the rule of law, if they don't have adequate legal representation and legal guidance. And so for me, doing voluntary pro bono work is so important just for the operation of the law in general. So there's a huge range of things that I do in my role as a volunteer, and there's a huge range of people that I meet. Basically, my role is split into two halves, and it depends on who's coming into the legal clinic that day. It just depends on such a huge variety of things. I get assigned a task for the day, basically. One of these things can be research. Quite often I'll be given a case that the firm is working on. We'll either be drawing up a timeline of a client. So for example, if you have somebody who is applying for leave to remain, and they've got this whole load of information, and sometimes it will be my job to then try and search through that, organise it, put it in a timeline so that it's super duper clear for the solicitors when they come to present that case, or just do more work on that case. Another thing is I will do country research quite a lot. Sometimes I'll be given a case to kind of look at, and so I have a bit of a foundation as to where I then need to specifically research. But a lot of the time, for example, I will be researching like police protection for victims of domestic violence in a certain country, or honour killings in a certain country, so that the firm is completely sure that they haven't missed any significant points. It is very easy for the Home Office to turn around and say there's no threat, there's not enough evidence that this is a threat, and so therefore you are going to be deported, and the law firm need to prove, well actually no, there is a threat. And so that's where my work comes in, because I can say, well, the Human Rights Watch or the UN or whichever body has recently reported that there's been 2,000 deaths because of this issue. The other part of my work, and this is the part that I'll probably focus a little bit more on because it's about like person-to-person contact, is I conduct the initial interviews. So the way that the law firm works is they have a legal clinic, they have people who are referred to them. Some of these people have just arrived in the UK, some people have been there for 10 years, some people have been there for 20 years. Some people have put in a claim for asylum and it's been rejected, then they've appealed and it's been rejected, and some people are putting in fresh claims. On top of that, some people have never put in a claim before and they want to do their first claim, and so there's so many people that come through that door, and my job is to sit down and get as much information as I can about that person that will be helpful. I find out when they came to the UK, I find out what their financial situation is, how they're getting money, I find out if they're working illegally, I find out if they're married, if they have any children, I find out why they can't go to their home country, I find out like just the whole story. And that can be so difficult, Who do I speak to in general? There is no category of asylum seeker or refugee. I've met kind of your typical refugee that you see on the news who travelled to the UK in the back of a lorry. But I also meet the wives of British citizens who suffered from domestic abuse and therefore left their husbands and are now facing deportation, and they have children in the UK, and them being deported would mean they would not see their children. I have people who come who, you know, came here for 2 weeks and stayed for 2 years, and they can't go home because they have political threats of violence against them in their home country. And I have people who come who actually have had no deportation threats made against them, and have just been living this kind of fake life for so long and want to come forward and say, you know, and gain British citizenship through a legitimate path. So you might be thinking, why am I doing this? Surely a lawyer should be doing this, surely that's what these people deserve. And I agree. These people deserve better. Like, at the end of the day, I'm a second year law student. I don't have the relevant legal knowledge about this. I can only show my empathy and support and adopt a level of professionalism. But the reason why lawyers can't do this, and the reason why it's down to volunteers like me, is because of huge cuts in legal aid. I don't have the exact statistics on this, but I think it's an issue that people are so unaware of, and this is another thing that really pushed me to make this video. Legal aid is money that's given to ensure representation for people who can't afford. In recent years that has been cut hugely, and it's meant that firms like the one that I volunteer at, who used to be solely legal aid firms, have now had to also adopt private clients because they can't afford to keep themselves going. Like, legal aid firms around the country have shut down or have adopted private work, or have gone solely to private work, because the amount of money that is given to these firms per case is enormously insignificant. It's so little. It's very difficult for them to be able to cover their costs. So if they had a solicitor sitting down with every single person that came in, they would not be able to financially sustain themselves. And this initial session, this fact-finding session, that doesn't need any legal qualifications. In fact, if I tried to provide any legal advice, which I would never do, that would be completely inappropriate. It's down to me to just get those facts that can sort of be the base and the foundation, so that it can be identified whether they qualify for legal aid, whether they've got a chance of getting their case passed, and all of these sorts of things. So in a very, very rough, roundabout way, what I'm saying is, somebody comes in, we find out what their financial situation is, we find out where they're getting their money from, all these kind of things. We then apply for legal aid on behalf of the firm. If they qualify for legal aid, then the government will give the firm that money. And this is what always annoys me, because I see the headlines and like, you know, terrorist gets given however much money for legal aid and all this sort of thing. And no, they've not. Like, as in, first of all, most of the time the amounts are completely inaccurate, but also it's not like the government just goes, here, take all of this money and yeah, just do with it what you will. No, they are underpaying qualified lawyers. The money is going directly to said lawyers to represent people. They are representing people, regardless of who that person is, which I hate this assumption that people are terrorists, like if they've come from a different country. That's a whole other topic, but like, even if this person that comes to the UK was a terrorist, or like just was not a good person, I don't understand how people can't see that that person is still, that person should still have legal representation, because it's for the benefit of everybody. A fair trial is for the benefit of everybody, and that's not saying that they will be granted leave to remain. It just means that their case will be heard on the facts. And I don't understand this idea that we should just like not help anybody just because maybe they're a threat to our society. Run over. There are a few things that I've learned from doing pro bono work. I think the first one is that I thought I understood the issues regarding immigration. Like I've already said, the racist attitudes of, I would say, quite a significant portion of the British public towards refugees and asylum seekers is something that has really infuriated me. And I've seen the statistics of the horrors that people go through trying to come to the UK. I think you can't consider those statistics to be people until you've met those people. I think what I've learned is that all of the asylum seekers that I speak to, they're not these poor people who are so weak and so feeble. They are the strongest, most incredible people I have met. Sometimes I have people break down and cry in front of me, and I hear their stories I hear about sex trafficking, I hear about their experiences in refugee camps, I hear about them fearing for their children's lives, I hear about them having to leave loved ones behind knowing they'll never see them again. And like, I just don't know how people can survive that. I don't know how they do it. And their strength amazes me every time I walk into one of those interview rooms. On the flip side, not all of my colleague volunteers have met fantastically wonderful, inspiring people. Some people have met people who are not the best, as in they're trying to seek asylum here because in their home country they're under threat because they've committed some really quite awful crime. We still need legal representation for everybody. Everybody should have legal representation. It doesn't matter what you've done, because it's not necessarily for that person, it's for the justice system in general. It's not just about the individual. I've also learnt how high up this intolerance goes. I've read letters where the Home Office has claimed that there was insufficient evidence that there was a threat at home, or the client was clearly lying because they were giving conflicting information, but the reason that that conclusion had been reached was because there was no translator in the interview and the client didn't speak English at the time. It's unbelievable, some of the things that you read. Sometimes the Home Office literally just copy and paste across things, and you can see, like, between two letters they just copied and pasted everything across. You know, sometimes I meet students, sometimes I meet people who are the same age as me, and they've been through just the most terrible things. But sometimes they've not been through the most terrible things. Sometimes they arrived here as a child with their family. The entirety of their teenage years here, they've grown up here. They speak the language, they go to university here, they've done their GCSEs here, they've done their A-levels here, and now the Home Office saying, no, you should just be sent to your home country. But how can that be their home country when their whole life is in the UK? All of their friends are British. Their culture is British culture because they don't really know any different now. I don't understand, like... The final thing that I've learned is I wanted to go into this to help people, and what I've learned is that I'm actually very helpless. I've learned that quite often there's just frankly nothing we can do. I've learned that I'll meet people and I want to do anything I can to give them a hug, or to tell them everything's going to be okay, to tell them that this will all be sorted out, it'll all be overseen. And I can't. I can't tell them that because I don't know that. Sometimes I explicitly know that that won't happen, and sometimes you just feel so incredibly helpless because you know that this is not fair, but you also know that you can't do anything about it. And I know that this video will probably get like 3 views and will have no impact, but I think that I just wanted to put this out there. I've learnt a lot from the experience, and I would really encourage anybody else to get involved in a similar kind of thing. Begin to think about the people as individuals rather than the statistics plastered across the newspaper, and start to think critically about the headlines that you're reading, about the figures that you're reading. Is it really the case that a terrorist was given £50,000? No, that, like, as in, just no. You know, you need to start thinking about the sides to every story, because every newspaper has bias, and it's up to you to see through that, and it's up to you to figure out exactly where you stand on these issues. And you'll probably have a different view to me, whichever way you kind of decide, but it's so important to form your own views, and it's so important to take those views from real knowledge and real experiences. That's all for now. I hope that if you are about to break up for Easter, you have a really lovely time, and I'll see you really soon. Bye.